Hello and welcome to another edition of Africa Speaks right here on Pan-African Television. My name is Victoria Wilson, and this week's episode carries a special weight as Ghana marks Founders Day 2025. It's a moment that brings us back to the legacy of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, whose vision of independence, unity, and Pan-Africanism continues to shape our struggles today. So to set the stage, we turn to our Spotlight segment where we reflect on the meaning of Founders Day, the enduring relevance of Nkrumah's ideas, and what they tell us about Africa's unfinished journey towards true liberation. Do stay with us.
Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to the Spotlight segment on Africa Speaks. We come to you a few days after Ghana celebrated Founders Day, and once again delve deep into questions of its history, struggle, and their implications today. On Founders Day, we ask ourselves again, whose stories are honored and whose ideals are still alive, and what does it say about us as a nation? Each September 21, Ghana marks Founders Day to celebrate the birthday of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Over the years, though a concerted campaign sought to dispute the collective memory and legacy of our nation building, socialists in Ghana have consistently honored Nkrumah's leadership, insisting that his vision must not be diluted by elites seeking to shift the narrative. However, in 2019, the Nana Akufo-Addo government officially moved Founders Day from September 21 to August 4. The date honors the founding of United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC, and thereby embraces the wide role of the Big Six and other historical actors in Ghana's independence story. Critics saw this as an attempt to undermine Nkrumah's central role. Most recently, in June 2025, Parliament restored September 21 as Founders Day, reinstating Nkrumah's birthday as the date, while abolishing the August 4 holiday. The rationale: you cannot tell Ghana's independence story and omit the most visionary leader. From the socialist standpoint, this isn't just about date. It's about ideology. It's about remembering who led the struggle for self-determination and what social and economic structures are fought over. Nkrumah's legacy is inseparable from his critique of colonialism and warnings of neocolonialism. Even after formal independence, he sought not only political freedom, but social transformation, state-led industrialization, public ownership in key sectors, and Pan-African unity. These were not footnotes, but they were central to the vision. Yet, the years since independence have witnessed repeated attempts to shrink the vision: privatization of public enterprises, concessions, foreign debt, extraction of resources under conditions favorable to foreign capital. The socialist movement in Ghana today, such as the Socialist Movement of Ghana, sees the restoration of September 21 not merely as symbolic, but as a demand for returning to those founding values. It is a call to face the enduring inequalities, to contest neo-colonial influence, and to rebuild society so that the great masses, not just the elites, benefit. What can we draw from this? First, Founders Day is not just a holiday. It is a site of ideological contestation. Who gets remembered and how shapes politics today. Second, the vision of Nkrumah and its socialist ideals relevant as the world confronts climate crisis, inequality, and foreign interferences. His insistence that wealth and resources serve ordinary people strikes a powerful chord. Third, the task ahead is political, but also deeply practical: organizing labor, defending public services, questioning partners of foreign dependency. These are not nostalgia. They are unfinished work of Founders Day. On Founders Day, let us remember more than names and date. Let us remember values, collective agencies, social justice, shared dignities. Let us honor the sacrifice of those who laid the foundations and also commit ourselves to build upon them, not merely preserving monuments. I'm Danny Otuesante. Until next time, the Spotlight segment on Africa Speaks reminds you that liberation is not complete until it means something real in people's everyday lives. Happy Founders Day, Ghana.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel Otuasante, for the insightful explainer. And now, from our spotlight, we move straight into Expert Speak, where we dig deeper with voices that have studied, lived, and carried forward Nkrumah's legacy. Joining us today is Professor Atabri Chim, a standing member of the Socialist Movement of Ghana and a member of its Advisory Council. He shares with us his reflection on Nkrumah's vision for Ghana and Africa, and why in 2025 his message still rings with urgency for the struggle we face.
The outgoing president is from what they call it the Busia Dankwa tradition. And he claims that
So Sadampa was to control the relative. And Dampa and that he is his role in Ghana's history is let me say, it's one of reaction. It's not an initiator that they react to what someone else has initiated, what the former has initiated.
and he played that negative role throughout. And so the people don't remember him. And so Akufo-Addo, the outgoing president, comes in and then he creates this myth about founders and that Nkrumah couldn't have been the only one founding Ghana. And so there were people who got imprisoned.
In 1948, when the riot said, there were 6 of them, Nkrumah plus 5 others. So when the police entirely got engaged, all the 5 other people said they had nothing to do with it. And then Nkrumah owned up. So he was kept in jail.
And the others were released. Now, even if they participated actively in the struggle for independence,
Eventually, when the history comes to the written, it's not basically everybody else involved. It has to be the leader. There's space for only one leader everywhere in the world. So you're talking about the Soviet Union, including at Lenin, Lenin used to depend on other people, and people like Trotsky, they played a major role. But you're talking about the founder of Russia, the Soviet Union. There's no space for Turkey or any other person. Same thing about America. You talk about George Washington. There's no one else, and so on. So now that then we also found out later, Dampa was in prison. He was kept with someone without willing himself. And then, there was a lot of controversy about it. But in 1984, a book came out by a man called Richard Maheli. And Maheli, the son of the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, well, on the time of the coup he was an ambassador, and at the time he was ambassador here, Dampa was in prison. And when Dampa was released from prison, he walked straight to the embassy to ask for his stipend because he was paid as an agent of the CIA. Fantastic. And they explained that the embassy didn't know him, but they made reference to the State Department. And in fact, the State Department had him on their record as an agent of the CIA. And from that moment, it was decided that all CIA agents abroad should report to the local U.S. embassy. So Dampa was an agent of the CIA. And the CIA that was the planning. So what has been happening over the past 5 years is to rewrite the history of Ghana in a way that will make Dampa and the others look too bad. But they weren't ashamed of the positions they took against Kwame Nkrumah. It is only now, because then the Nkrumah's position is the one that is top what Ghanaians. So they are moving the history into line with what Ghanaians are used to. And that's how come Dampa became important. So, he couldn't have replaced Nkrumah with Dampa, so he invented this thing about the big six. So the founders. So we have a day for the founders of Ghana, not for one founder. And of course, everybody objected, and Nkrumah was someone I couldn't argue with. He gets angry with you, he'll get you killed and school. So people felt like he wasn't going to be here forever. Never back his plan. So the correct story is now going to be told. And I think it's important. This is not talked about much, but and then Ikema had relations with the left wing of the Labour Party in England. I think some of his advisors were such people. So that was one. And the other thing also is that from 1967 going, that the period when the Soviet Union had been founded, when a new conception of social political organization was being tested. And they were yielding results. And this was at the root of the social democratic movement in Europe. So, especially in the Scandinavian countries, you have all these socialist things and so on. It was to move the discourse closer to the communist discourse that was at play in the Soviet Union. So this whole thing about state intervention in national development was not invented by Kwame Nkrumah, but it was something that was pushed by the Soviet example. So the Nkrumah's idea was to now, colonialism is capitalism. And what we had under colonialism was private ownership of means of production. Now, Nkrumah's position was to diversify this private ownership of means of production by setting up state enterprise, publicly owned enterprise first. And he set up hundreds of them, not one or two, hundreds of them were set up. And he concentrated also on infrastructure development, power generation, right? Power generation, and that led to the creation of the Akosom Bhutan. And then also the creation of the deep water harbor, artificial harbor in Tema and the Tema township. So the idea was to give the state a commanding role in economic development. Neo-colonialism is the interest when Nkrumah coined the term. He also used to call it neo-colonialism. This now this is my reading. You see, this is my reading because when I read Nkrumah's one of the outstanding features of Kwame Nkrumah is he's one of the few leaders, world leaders, reflects on his practice of leadership and writes about them. So Nkrumah has a number of titles. Yesterday, Congress had mentioned 11 of them. Now, so neocolonialism and the founding of imperialism is a word that actually came to the document its reflection on the phenomenon of neocolonialism. Neocolonialism and the survival of colonialism in the post-colonial. So the independences were supposed to negate the colonial. But what the independence did, well, what independence did was to make it possible for colonialism to survive the independence. Yeah, that's what they say. Now, so that has to say colonialism is capitalism. So what colonialism started was not the colonial state. The colonial state whose primary function was the management of capitalism. Like now, what the struggle for independence was about, including the way in which the government conceived of it, was to get hold of state power. But the colonial state was merely the colonial state was only a superstructure of the base, and the base of capitalism. So if you get hold of the superstructure, meaning the state power, and you have no control of the material base, the mode of production, if you don't have control of the mode of production, then really you haven't achieved much. So independence came, but the mode of production, the colonial mode of production, the capitalist mode of production stayed in place. So we had political power, and that meant that you had Africans, indigents, managing the power that was driving the material base, which was capitalist. So really, we haven't achieved much. So capitalism has survived the independence. So this is what we command played. And then in real colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, he fills the boot with facts and figures that demonstrate the control of capitalism in all these African countries. So the ultimate is the fight against colonialism should be the fight for socialism. In other words, the fight to eradicate capitalism. And that is where the movement, the socialist movement of Ghana is at. And Nkrumah was aiming to get there, he didn't get there. And the Americans read ahead of him and took him out. We are back seriously to fighting capitalism. And that's the only way to take Africa out of the present miasma. And that's the dream of our God. And the basis is unity. Nkrumah is saying that we can't survive without coming together. And we come together under a given framework, and the framework has to be socialism. We can't come together and make our resources available to the global capitalism. That's a non-starter. So Nkrumah's vision is still relevant. And you know, all those apart from Rawlings, there was Kufuor, and after Kufuor, there was a Kufuor. When they step out of Ghana and they get anywhere in Africa or Europe or America, they are received as the successors of Kwame Nkrumah, and they earn respect on that basis, especially Kufuor. until he opens his mouth and he starts spewing nonsense. And then he gets it. Ghana, and Kuma show boy. Ghana, and Kuma show boy. I want to see Kwame Nkrumah show boy. I want to see Kwame Nkrumah show boy. Ghana, and Nkrumah show boy. This is how they sing it. Ghana, and Nkrumah show boy. I want to see you, Kwame Nkrumah show boy. I want to see you, Kwame Nkrumah show boy. Ghana, and Nkrumah show boy. Ghana, and Nkrumah show boy. I want to see you, Kwame Nkrumah show boy. I want to see you, Kwame Nkrumah show boy.
That was a very insightful discussion coming from Professor Atta Brichum. And now we turn to the people, the heartbeat of the movement. In this week's Voices on the Ground, members of the Socialist Movement of Ghana shared their reflections on the importance of Nkrumah to the movement's vision and aspiration. Speaking at their second National Delegate Congress, held over the weekend at the Amelka Cabral School in Ijanwa, comrades reminded us that to follow the path of Nkrumah is to commit ourselves to Pan-African unity, anti-imperialist struggle, and people-centered transformation.
Yes, I'm glad that you have noted clearly that there have been attempts by the Buzia Dankwa elements within our country to distort our history. 21st September, as Founders Day, will continue to remain relevant as long as the ideas of Kwame Nkrumah remain relevant in this country. I have consistently said that any attempt to bury the Nkrumah project, any attempt to bury Nkrumah, the legacies of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, is like holding a baobab tree by the stem and making an attempt to shake it. Nkrumah will continue to remain relevant today, tomorrow, and forever. 21st, there have been attempts to introduce what was known as Founders with an S Day, shifting it from the 21st of September to the 4th of August as Founders Day to include all other what they call founders of this nation. But when you do a background check on these so-called founders, you will be shocked at the legacies some of them have left. It is undoubted that there's only one founder for the nation of Ghana. Modern Ghana, as long as Modern Ghana project is concerned, there is only one founder, and that is the Osadifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
Hello everyone, my name is Zila from the US Collective and a member of the Socialist Movement US Collective. So today being Congress, Socialist Movement in Ghana, today is massive significance the junction of Ghana, again which Kwame Nkrumah was born. So we are looking at how to keep the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah despite not just ideological. So after this conference, I want to go to more strong Africanist based in Ghana organization. So we're looking at political activism, community, and to learn about Kwame Nkrumah's that's the major reason why she was about for you to need to understand the visions of the was that we're celebrating Ghana, we're celebrating the whole world, because the African vision to create a United States of Africa, essentially being in the same situation as it is rather the North and so we today are bred the Kwame has been calling us coming back to educate ourselves, everybody just as Kwame. So if today you are celebrating the birthday of Kwame Nkrumah, have it at the back of your mind. We have a tax opportunity and a vision to make sure that the dreams of Kwame Nkrumah have come to pass this week. I'm really, really honored to this position.
Nkrumah has been a huge bolster for the black liberation and the freedom of most of the countries that we see around. SMG has run several tangible projects and programs that we can say that it is a continuation of what Nkrumah started. For instance, let's use WAPO, West African People's Organization, which is mobilizing a lot of support around the West African sub-region and doing tremendously well. And in fact, it is good to note that WAPO has one of the biggest trade unions from Nigeria being a member of the West African People's Organization. And that is a big achievement of the internationalism that Nkrumah has over the years preached and advised us not to falter or leave it behind, especially that we pull along our colleague black people, and especially if the socialist movement of Ghana is struggling over here at our coast here to organize and remobilize people. I'm sure we are achieving, or we are drawing closer to some of the things that, and we are building on what Nkrumah started. Another thing we are doing that we must and we should, it's worth recommending, that we are continuing from where Nkrumah started, is that we have started and initiated a program called the Pan-African Youth Groups or Clubs in various secondary schools. And these secondary schools are supposed, these clubs and groups in our secondary schools are supposed to imbue in the young lads the importance of Pan-Africanism. That is one. The importance of understanding the cultural and the historical problems that underpin the underdevelopment and the exploitation of our people. This avenue is also serving as an avenue to recruit and train young lads so that the counter and misleading history that we are having in the system, that is misleading young people on how Nkrumah was wasteful, is dealt with and better handled. And we are looking forward to moving it even from the secondary schools, even to our junior high level, so that every little young person in our country is well informed. That alone may not be enough. I must also add that the SMG through its women wing is also doing so much, mobilizing different classes of women in different forms of struggles and pushing narratives and agendas. I'm proud to say that our women wing have been able to push so hard that sanitary pads that were taxable in our country has been abolished. Locally produced sanitary pads do not have taxes on them. And it is something we can be proud of. In fact, it is so nice to hear that government of Ghana today, given the struggle and the push, the agenda and the campaign we had on not taxing sanitary pads, today the government of Ghana is producing and providing free sanitary pads for second cycle education young girls. There are so many things to talk about if we must say that the SMG is doing tremendously well. And I will finish with the fact that there are things that Nkrumah says, that especially his famous quote that we must prove a point that if the African is given the opportunity, or the black man is given an opportunity, he has all it takes to develop and grow itself. The SMG, as of now, owns several assets, given our small numerical strengths. We own a lot of assets, including the famous American Cabral School in Ajanwa, the Pan-African TV, the Inside newspaper, so many things that we can boast of, and it is working with people. And in fact, we are currently also working with peasants, cocoa farmers, and a host of others that I may not. And I'm very sure that we have not left the ideals. We are against the use of Western Bretton Woods institutions to dictate to us how to run our countries. We propose solutions that are internal. And in the just ended elections in 2024, though not a political party, we had one of the best political manifestos that was published for other political parties to learn from our experiences and the ideal Ghana that we envision to build from where Nkrumah started.
And now now to our dispatches, where we bring you updates from across the continent. In Pretoria, South Africa, Swazi activists gathered outside the U.S. Embassy to protest a controversial deportation deal. They argue that the arrangement undermines the rights of migrants and strengthens authoritarian rule back home. Meanwhile, the global summoned flotilla carrying solidarity aid to Gaza was attacked on its journey. A stark reminder of ongoing blockade and the courage of international movement standing with the people of Palestine.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Victoria, for this interview. I must confirm that indeed, a few days ago, on the 19th of September 2025, we had our people showing their rage regarding the decision of the United States of America's decision to dump immigrants into the Kingdom of Swaziland in a deal that was signed between Africa's last absolute monarch, King Mswati, as well as the United States of America's government. We can confirm that our people indeed joined the picket lines as well on that particular day in assistance or with solidarity being offered by our solidarity partners from South Africa, as led by the Tripartite Alliance, the African National Congress, the SACP, as well as the Congress of South African Trade Unions. The demand was very clear, was that this deal between Mswati and Donald Trump must be reversed because it doesn't represent the interest of the American people as well as the interest of the Swazi people at large. It is only a deal that only seeks to benefit these two rulers who, of course, we can confirm that they do not enjoy popular support within their populace as well. As we know as well that King Mswati III is the last absolute monarch in Africa. He has absolute control over the judiciary, the legislature, as well as the executive arm of government. So therefore, that means he is still ruling by decree even to this day, since political parties were banned in April 12, 1973. So that means that the decision to allow the migrants to be dumped in Swaziland, as we had previously said, leadership, is that it was taken without any prior consultation. So therefore, the people reject it holistically because we view it not only as a violation of our right to sovereignty as a country, but we see it as an attempt to use our country by the United States of America as a dumping site for criminals as well. By the way, we can also say that we've also done our research and we've come to understand that some of these migrants had actually completed their prison sentences in the United States of America before they were dumped in Swaziland, and therefore that actually means that they are not only prisoners, by the way. So this is similar to human trafficking in essence, because legally, so these people had completed and some of them had completed their sentences in the United States of America. So there is no logical reason why they can be dumped or taken to a Swazi prison, because they do not belong in prison, but they belong in America living normal lives. But however, this deal was still signed between these two governments. So therefore, it is for that reason that as the people of Swaziland, we will never stop agitating and calling for the reversal of this deal. However, fundamentally, as a backbone to this complaint, we are calling for the complete democratization of Swaziland so that we do not have to worry about our country being used as a dumping site by a ruler who does not enjoy popular support from the people. Therefore, we are calling for the democratization of Swaziland. We are calling for the world to offer solidarity to the people of Swaziland as they seek to topple this regime and usher in a people's government that will be based on the will of the Swazi people. Thank you very much, Victor.
The mobilization that is now in for Gaza is not something new, and this kind of movement and this kind of mobilization is not also something new, because in 2010 was the Mavi Marmara was having the same cause to remove the blockade on Gaza. So the Mavi Marmara in 2010 was also attacked by the Israeli and was then killed and more than 50 injured. And the people there was their personal property was confiscated, also the sheep. So this kind of starts months ago. The discussion was for a long time, and there was months for discussion how is the way to do it, and there was discussion also the legal issue and everything, and how they can have this kind of ship, and because they are selling from a region to another region, so it's not something short, it's a long sell. So that is why the discussion take a long time. And after the decision, they decide that there is many points to start the sale. There is Italy, there is Spain, Greece, and Tunisia. So first of all, there was the people who was selling from Spain. They go to Tunis. It take them more because they was planning to have just 4 or 5 days in Tunis, and after that they will sell with the other ship. But the it took a long time because of the technical issue, and also to find some pilots, because that was every time there is someone is coming to piloting the ship, that was some reparation to just uh, cancel the sale. So they decide at the day after, 2 days after the attack was in Tunisia, also in Sidi Bouzid, really attacked the Tunisian for 2 nights by a drone. So the first night, because the Tunisian authority didn't know that there is attack. They were saying that is not an attack, is a kind of intern problem. So that was a fire that's coming just by mistake. But the second day that the attack was more obvious. So, and after the two attack, the organizer of the flotilla decide that they need to sell, and they don't want to waste more time, so that it will be more attack on the Tunisian territory. So, and that means the ship will not be able to sell. So they sell from Tunisia, and they went to Malta and Italy to get the fuel, because you know that the selling from Tunis to Gaza is a long distance, so they need to have some point to rest. That is why the Israeli, every time that there was in international water, was many drones that they are flying around those kind of ship. And the last 2 days was many attacks, and those attacks come after the statements that the Israeli was made, saying that if you want to send the aid for Gazian, you need just to enter to Asqalan. Asqalan is a city that is so far from Gaza. So the people in the flotilla was saying there is many aid in the Rafah, and there is many aid in Egypt, and there is many aid in other points. So they are, and those aid is not arriving to the Gazians. So we will not do the same mistake. We will sell to Gaza without any discussion, that we will just uh, uh, do another plan to go to another city, and after that the Israeli will get. So that was the discussion. And after that statement from the Israeli foreign ministry tried to start to make kind of tweet saying that this person is with Hamas. So that was a lot of people, and leader of the flotilla was targeted by the Israeli. So they was saying that they have a kind of relation with Hamas and with the resistance in Gaza. And The last days we have many interview and kind of video from those people. They was saying that the photos that they was using, the Israeli was using, is a fake photos, and we are selling for a humanitarian cause. So, and that was always the same speech. We are not going to war. We are going as an individual, as an activist, as a people that they are seeing what is happening in Gaza, and they want to change it, and they want to send this kind of aid, because that was the government and the international institution didn't do what they need to do, because every time the international institution uh, work on something to send aid to Gaza, every time was blockaded by the Israeli. So those days, that was many attack, but the member and the activists in Letella still in the same in the same situation. We are selling to Gaza, whatever is the condition, whatever is the threat, but our goal was already uh, decided. So it's not, we will not change our decision. There is nothing changing Gaza, and they will nothing change our opinion about our selling. And in the same time, because of those attack, that was many countries that they was saying we will protect our people and our patriots. So, for example, Italy sent 2 days ago a kind of military ship to protect their people, and also today they are saying that they will send another one for protecting the ships. And also they were saying it's not for the military cause, it's just for protecting our people. And because, and this one also, this situation come also after the many countries that they recognize that Palestine is a country, and they need to decide how they want to have to be their country. So we was saying that the French, Canadian, Australian, and British in the last meeting in UN saying we recognize Palestine as a state. So, and all this pressure make Israel to be in a bad situation, because for many months Israel start to be more isolated in the international area. So it's not the same speech. They are more harsh with the attack, yes, but they are more isolated, and that means that this flotilla was good to highlight more, because the people, what the flotilla activist was saying, that we don't want the people around the world to forget what is happening in Gaza, and our goal is to highlight every time what is in Gaza, and also to make a pressure in our governments and in the international institution to react, because the situation is just began to be worse. And after the attack that Israel make in Doha against some leader of Hamas, that means the Israeli they are not in their mind that the negotiation will keep going. So this is why this flotilla was good for the Palestinian people, because they are saying that the people around the world, they still struggle for their cause and for our cause, because it's not just Palestinian cause, but it's a humanitarian and the world cause, and also for the, like I was saying, for the government. So that means the government will react if their patriots was attacked. And just today, many governments send a letter to their people that they are their participants from their country, that they are in the flotilla, saying that maybe it will be an attack by the Israeli in those days. So be careful, and we will send you the update about everything later.
And now it's time for our word of the day. Today's word is independence. Independence is more than the lowering of a colonial flag and the raising of a national one. For Ghana's Nkrumah, independence was meaningless unless it was linked to the total liberation of Africa. So as we commemorate Founders Day in 2025, and as Mali also celebrates its independence this week, we are reminded that independence is not an event of the past. It is a continuous struggle for sovereignty, dignity, and self-determination in the face of new forms of domination. This is your word of the day segment of Africa Speaks right here on Pan-African Television. The word this week is independence. Independence is a word that epitomizes the struggle of generations, the fire of revolutions, and the journey of entire nations from chains to the promise of freedom. It is also a word that demands interrogation. So what do we really mean when we say independence? This week is an important one because in Ghana, we mark Founders Day, a moment to reflect on the vision and legacy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He stood on the podium in 1957 and declared that the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it was connected to the liberation of the whole African continent. So for Nkrumah, independence was never a flag-raising ceremony, never a matter of national prestige alone. It was about breaking the chains of colonialism and neocolonialism in every form: economic, cultural, and political. It was about sovereignty, about building a united Africa capable of charting its own course, free from the dictates of imperial powers. At the same time this week, Mali celebrates its independence. The question Mali's people raise today is the same Nkrumah posed more than half a century ago. What is the value of independence if foreign powers still control your resources, dictate your policies, or occupy your soil with military bases? Mali, alongside its Sahelian neighbors, has been forced to reassert its sovereignty in the 21st century, struggling against the very forms of domination Nkrumah warned us about. Their path shows us that independence is not a single event in history. It is a constant battle. So look across Africa, and the contradictions are clear. We raise flags and sing national anthems, but our economies remain tied to the dictates of global finance. We call ourselves sovereign states, but decisions about our futures are too often shaped in Washington, Paris, and London, rather than in Accra, Bamako, or Ouagadougou. We celebrate independence, but its substance, true self-determination, remains an unfinished struggle for national liberation. That is why Nkrumah's relevance is not a question for the history books. It is a question for today. His call for continental unity, for control over our natural resources, for socialism as a path to equality and justice. These are not outdated slogans. They are the tools we need to transform independence from a symbol into concrete reality. So when we say independence, let us be clear. We are not simply remembering a date on a calendar. We are affirming a living struggle, a struggle to own our own land, to decide our own destiny, and to build a continent that answers to the need of its people and not to imperial masters. Independence is not a past achievement. It is a present demand and struggle where we the people are the protagonists. And it will remain Africa's central battle until the promise of Nkrumah's words, total liberation of the African continent, becomes not just an aspiration, but a reality. Close this week with our history segment. Today we honor Winnie Madikizela Mandela, a towering figure in South Africa's liberation struggle, known as the Mother of the Nation. Winnie stood steadfast through decades of repression, exile, and harassment, embodying the resilience of African women in the fight for freedom. Her life is a reminder that independence and liberation are always carried forward by those willing to resist at the highest cost. September 26th marks the birth anniversary of South African revolutionary icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who spent decades fighting the apartheid regime and continued struggling for the true liberation of the working class till the end of her life. Born in 1936, she plunged into the liberation struggle in her 20s and was detained for the first time in 1958. In the following decades, she was arrested and banned countless times for being in the forefront of some of the most important struggles against apartheid. She even spent 13 months in solitary confinement in 1969 and was tortured and beaten. Known as the Mother of the Nation, Comrade Winnie was the commander-in-chief of all urban guerrilla struggles in apartheid South Africa. She was in the thick of the struggle, fighting back against the racist armed thugs of the apartheid regime, giving the people confidence that they could organize, resist, and overthrow an unjust system. She was at the forefront of the consumer boycotts, bus boycotts, and working class strikes in the form of stay-aways, a firm believer in the people leading the struggle from the ground and changing the arc of history. She also played an integral role in keeping alive the struggle of her then husband, Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, 18 of them in the brutal Robben Island facility. After apartheid was overthrown, Winnie Madikizela Mandela served as a deputy minister but also remained critical of the new government's failure to dismantle the economic base that perpetuated the poverty and misery of the black population of the country. Today, as South Africa reels under unemployment and record high levels of inequality, we remember the legacy of Winnie Madikizela Mandela, whose militancy and refusal to surrender inspires us in the journey towards true independence and justice. Her fearless actions, particularly in the struggle to end apartheid, continue to inspire young people fighting for liberation today. And that does it for this week's edition of Africa Speaks right here on Pan-African Television. My name is Victoria Wilson. And as we reflect on Founders Day 2025, let us remember that Nkrumah's words still hold true. The independence of any African nation is meaningless unless it is tied to the liberation of the whole continent. Until we meet again, let the flame of unity and resistance burn right across Africa. See you soon and enjoy the rest of our programs.